Imagine this. During your school or college life, you must have made many friends, some good and some bad. But the truth is we never know in advance who truly cares about us, and who can slowly turn into our biggest enemy. And in today's video, we are going to look at 3 real cases where one's own friends became the most dangerous people. So if you are in school or college, make sure to watch this video till the end, because this is not just a story, it is a warning. And now let's begin with the first case. This is the real story of a schoolgirl named Junko Furuta, Japan, 1988. A completely normal girl living a completely normal life with normal dreams and a normal future. But just one mistake, trusting the wrong people. And what happened after that is still considered one of the most disturbing cases in Japan's crime history. Junko was only 17 years old, a high school student with a quiet nature. She didn't have many friends, but the ones she had, she trusted completely. She was neither rebellious nor a troublemaker. And for her teachers, she was a perfect student whose only dream was to finish school, get a job, and support her family. At that time, Japan was considered a very safe country. The crime rate was low, parents believed their daughters were completely safe, and Junko believed the same. But she had no idea that her own schoolmate would turn her life into a living hell. That boy's name was Hiroshi Miyano. Outwardly, he seemed completely normal, friendly, and sometimes even funny. But on the inside, he was connected to local gangs, had a history of violence, and was obsessed with control and power. Hiroshi liked Junko, but when Junko politely rejected him, he began to see her as his property, because he was not the kind of person who could accept rejection. One day, while Junko was returning home from school, Hiroshi stopped her and said he just wanted to talk for a while. Junko didn't sense any danger because he was her schoolmate, but that moment became the biggest turning point of her life, when Hiroshi forced her onto his bike and threatened her, saying that if she screamed, he would kill her family. Out of fear, Junko stayed silent, and that was the beginning of a 44-day nightmare. Hiroshi took her to his parents' house, and the most shocking part was that his parents were present in the house. They were simply told that she was his girlfriend, and Junko was clearly warned that if she said anything, the gang would kill her family, and because of this fear, she stayed quiet and endured everything. The next day, Hiroshi called 3 of his friends, Joe Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe, who were also school-going teenagers. At first there were jokes and taunts, but slowly group cruelty became normal, and things were done to Junko that are beyond imagination. She was tortured again and again. Whenever she lost consciousness, she was woken up and tortured again. She was not allowed to use the bathroom. She was not given clothes. She was given food only when she was almost unconscious. She was burned with cigarettes, tortured with objects, abused, insulted, and beaten daily, and many times she became so weak that she couldn't even move, yet no one helped her. During those 44 days, people kept coming to the house, friends came, gang members came, parties were held, and Junko remained lying there. Someone would say, "Will she run away?" Someone would say, "Kill her." But no one ever called the police. Even the parents had their doubts, but they never seriously questioned anything. They simply didn't care what was happening inside one room of their house. Junko tried to escape many times, and once she even reached the door, but she was caught, and after that the torture became even more brutal, so extreme that even the slightest movement caused unbearable pain. Yet she still wanted to live. But one day came when her body finally gave up, and due to extreme abuse she suffered multiple organ failure. At that moment, no one stopped, no one showed regret. They placed her body into a suitcase, sealed it inside a concrete drum, and dumped it, believing everything was over. However, Junko's disappearance had already been reported, and during a criminal investigation Hiroshi was arrested. The truth came out, and even the police were shocked. But the most disturbing part was that all the attackers were minors, which is why they received only light punishment, new identities, and early release. And this raises the question of whether that punishment was truly fair, because Junko had done nothing wrong. Her only crime was trusting the wrong people. This story is not limited to Japan. It can happen anywhere, because many times the most dangerous people are not strangers, but the ones we call our friends. So always think carefully before making friends. And now let's move on to our next case. Imagine if your best friend tells you, "Let's just go for a short drive, like we used to," and you get into the car laughing without thinking twice, not knowing that this drive will be the last drive of your life. And today's story is about Skylar Neese, a girl who used to take selfies with her best friends, laugh with them, and trust them completely, only for those same best friends to turn out to be her murderers. And the question is how all of this actually happened. Skylar Neese lived in West Virginia, USA. She was a 16-year-old school student, quite popular, yet her life was simple. School, friends, late-night chats, and weekend hangouts. Her friend circle was small but strong, and her two closest friends were Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. The three of them were known at school as the inseparable trio. Photos, videos, sleepovers. Everything looked perfectly normal, and no one could imagine that this friendship would eventually turn into a creepy nightmare. Because Rachel and Sheila were not just friends to Skylar, they were her emotional support, the people she shared secrets with, like family. Skylar trusted them blindly, and even her parents believed that these two girls were safe. The three of them used to make future plans together, dreaming about college, life, and fun. But slowly things began to change. The bond between Rachel and Sheila started growing stronger, and Skylar began to feel sidelined. The two of them started sharing private jokes, whispering among themselves, and ignoring Skylar's messages. Skylar became confused and even asked if everything was okay, and both of them smiled and said, "Of course." But in reality, jealousy was growing, obsession was developing, and hatred was quietly building. Later, during their confession, they said that one day they simply felt, "We just didn't like her anymore." Just that, but this didn't happen overnight. For weeks there were whispered conversations, secret planning, and fantasies about killing, and slowly Rachel and Sheila began to see murder as a solution. Their logic was simple. If Skylar was gone, everything would be fine. They decided to take Skylar to a place where no one would be around, and Skylar had absolutely no idea about this plan. Then came the night of July 6th, 2012. Skylar's parents were asleep, and a message came from Rachel and Sheila saying, "Let's just go for a short drive." Skylar was happy because for her this was completely normal. She quietly climbed out of her window, got into the car, and the three of them drove off laughing and joking. There was no dashcam, no witnesses, just three friends and one dark intention. After driving some distance, the car stopped in a deserted area, deep in the forests of West Virginia. Skylar had only one thought. Why here? But she didn't even get the chance to speak. Rachel and Sheila stepped out of the car. Skylar was confused for a second, and then both of them attacked her together. A knife came out, and everything changed within seconds. Skylar fought back. She screamed. She tried to run. But against two best friends, she couldn't survive for long. Within minutes, everything was over, and Skylar collapsed on the ground. Complete silence filling the forest. That wasn't all. They left her body there in the woods, got back into the car, played music, and went home. And the very next day they went to school, talked to friends, behaved completely normal, and posted on social media. We really did go on 3. People thought it was just a normal teenage post, but in reality it was a murder confession. That same morning, Skylar's parents panicked and called the police. And when the police spoke to Rachel and Sheila, they began acting. Crying, putting up posters, helping with the search, and in front of the media they were shown as best friends searching for a missing girl, while the truth remained hidden behind their faces. Months passed, but Rachel began to mentally break down. Guilt, pressure, and fear started consuming her. Police suspicion also grew stronger, and interrogations intensified. And finally Rachel confessed, leading the police to the forest where Skylar's body was found. Sheila initially denied everything, but evidence eventually broke her as well. And in court Rachel said that they stabbed her, she screamed, she fought. And they didn't stop, while Sheila said she didn't know why they did it. No motive, no regret, just one line. "We didn't like her." Both were given life sentences with the possibility of parole. But the most important thing to understand is that Skylar was not murdered by a stranger, not by a gang, not by a criminal. She was killed by her own best friends. And the scariest part of this story is that there were no warnings, no visible red flags. Everything looked normal. But sometimes the people who laugh with you are the same ones planning your end, which is why you should never trust blindly and never ignore silence. And now let's move toward our third case. Imagine being alone in the darkness of the night. The road is empty, and suddenly some people look at you and say, "Don't worry, we'll help you." And you don't even realize that this help is not help at all, but the beginning of your death. And today's story is about Anita Cobby, a girl who was simply on her way back home. But that night became one of the most brutal crime stories in Australian history. Anita Lorraine Cobby lived in Sydney, Australia. She was 26 years old and worked as a nurse, a health worker who believed that helping people was her duty. She was caring by nature, soft-spoken. Her life was not glamorous, but it was stable. She was married, but the relationship was unstable, which is why she was living at her parents' house. Anita's routine was simple: work, travel, and family. She didn't like darkness, but she also didn't know how to live in fear. Then came February 2nd, 1986, a Sunday. Anita was returning home by train after meeting a friend. It was already night, and the road from the station to her house was slightly deserted. She thought it was just a short walk, but she didn't know that this would be the last walk of her life. Just then, a van stopped on the road. Inside were a few young men who were laughing and looked normal. They asked Anita, "Do you need a lift?" Anita refused at first, but they didn't show force. They kept smiling and behaved casually. Anita felt they were probably just normal teenagers. And this was the exact moment when danger hid itself behind normal behavior. Eventually Anita agreed, and the moment she sat inside the van, the doors closed and the van drove away. Anita immediately felt that something was wrong. She wanted to scream, but it was the darkness of the night. 1 van and 5 men. Her voice went nowhere, and the van had already left the city behind. Inside the van were 5 men: John Travers, Michael Murphy, Les Murphy, Gary Murphy, and Gary Doyle, all close friends from the same area, sharing the same mindset, a group mentality that saw power, control, and cruelty as entertainment. For Anita this was a crime, but for them it had become a game. The van stopped. Anita was dragged out to an isolated location. There were no lights, no help, no sounds. She pleaded, requested, begged, but no one stopped. She was brutally assaulted, physically abused, and continuously tortured. This wasn't done by one person, but by 5 men together. And it went on for hours. Anita's body slowly began to give up, but their cruelty did not stop. And even after Anita was no longer alive, the violence didn't end. They showed no respect even to her body and left her in an isolated place, as if she was not a human being, but an object. The next morning when Anita's body was found, even the police officers were in shock. The media called it unimaginable brutality. And for a country like Australia, considered safe, this became a national trauma. People were asking how someone could be so cruel. The police wasted no time. The van was identified. Witnesses were found. Suspects were caught. The entire group of friends was arrested one by one. And during interrogation, all the details came out. Later police officers said this was the hardest case of their careers. Inside the courtroom, Anita's parents sat there, and every detail was a fresh wound for them. The court said this crime showed the darkest side of humanity. All the accused were given life imprisonment, and the judge clearly stated that they were beyond rehabilitation. After this case, laws in Australia became stricter, a national debate on women's safety began, and public trust was completely shaken. Anita did not remain just a victim. She became a symbol of trust gone wrong, of monsters hiding behind friendly faces. Because Anita Cobby did not take a risk. She only trusted humanity, and her story teaches us that danger is not always aggressive. Sometimes it comes with a smile. And remember, people standing in a group are not always safe. Every friendly offer is not help, and every safe country is not safe all the time.